We have Anubis and Bastet out of packaging. If I had to describe them in a word, they're gorgeous! Hello guys, it's Alan the Collector, and for this review we're going into the realm of the gods, taking a look at the Four Horseman Studios Figura Obscura, Anubis, and Bastet action figures. Four Horsemen does a really great job of keeping us on our toes when it comes to the direction of the Figura Obscura line, and now it's led us to Anubis and Bastet. So first, quickly going over the packaging, we have a mock-up of some hieroglyphic art on Egyptian limestone depicting our titular gods, which looks pretty amazing, as well as some gold letter foiling for their names and the Four Horsemen logo on the front. As for the side of the packaging, it's interesting how our feline-headed goddess has Anubis on the spine while the god of the dead has Bastet. And then when we flip it to the back of the packaging, we not only get brief bios for our canine and feline deities, but at the bottom right-hand corner, we also get Four Horsemen like NECA giving credit where credit is due. It's always a nice touch when the creators and designers of the toys we love get a shout out. In any case, the other side of the packaging just has some more Egyptian iconography, the bottom legalese, and then when we get back to the front, the outer cover of both figures are held on with some magnets which can be removed to reveal the figures we're all here for. You can clearly see Anubis and Bastet. The presentation is great, but honestly, I couldn't care less for their cardboard tombs, so let's go ahead and freeze them to figure out if the 4H team really has delivered toys worthy of the gods. And now that we have Anubis and Bastet out of packaging, if I had to describe them in a word, they're gorgeous! From head to toe, these figures are packed in with a ton of details. I do have my gripes, but so far, I like what I see. In any case, every god needs a proper offering, and thankfully Four Horsemen made sure these two got plenty. So without further ado, let's take a look at their accessories. Starting with Anubis, he comes with an Ankh symbol, 8 extra hands, a pair of human feet, an alternate neck piece, a jackal-headed canopic jar, a Wajidai pectoral, 2 heads, one inspired by Anubis statues, another with an organic roaring expression, as well as a Waz staff. As for Bastet, we get 3 extra heads, 2 organic and another based on a statue, 3 canopic jars depicting a baboon, a falcon, and a man, a basket, a wooden leopard head artifact, a falcon pectoral, a pair of human feet, 10 extra hands, a sistrum instrument, and an Aegis of Sekhmet artifact. This set also includes a historically accurate Anubis shrine as well as a Bastet statue. Not to mention this booklet, which features a lot of cool information about these two figures and the historical accessories they come with. Now getting back to the figures, what we're going to do is go ahead and cast Bastet here off to the wind so that we can focus on Anubis. And if you've never handled a Four Horseman figure before, one thing that they always do is spoil you with the details. Starting at the top, I really love the sculpt of his head. His long jackal ears look so cool, but the most notable thing about this head sculpt, at least for me, is probably going to have to be his nemes, which is a head cloth that was typically worn by royalty or depicted in the artwork of Egyptian gods. It has this really deep turquoise paint, and then we get some gold trim at the bottom and the top. I also like this turquoise paint for the jewel on top. Nemes would often drape across the shoulders of the wearer, and in this case, they're tipped off with this gold paint. This Nemes is removable. It just kind of plugs on with this rectangular peg. And while this square peg is just a bit unsightly, what it will allow you to do is utilize his neck articulation just a bit easier. Also, while it's off, let's take a look at this broad collar he's wearing. I really love the gold trim that we get on this piece. And then we have some teardrop jewelry alternating from red to turquoise to red again. Your eye is immediately drawn to the front of this broad collar, which features what appears to be 2 turquoise emblems, which was a very significant stone in ancient Egyptian history. I like this feathered scale pattern that we get, alternating from red to blue. And then at the top, we get this very ornate gold trim. We get these gold and green armbands sculpted on either bicep, followed by these gold and green bracelets on his wrist, but in this case, they are removable. I also really dig how muscular his arms look. And then check out his hands. Clearly he has the body of a man, but his godly beast nature is coming through with these black nails. And then getting to his waistband, it all comes to a point featuring a scarab holding a red jewel, which might symbolize the sun. The ornate detail of the belt continues with this band that has gold trim with alternating patterns of blue and red. And then we get a really nice use of soft goods for a linen skirt. It continues on to the back, and it also has a bendy wire. That brings us to the tail. It's a separate piece, and honestly, it kind of pops off a little too easily for my liking. The top of it where it meets the body has this gold painted armor, and then I like how we get this flesh tone that transitions into this black color. There is a bendy wire in this tail, so you will be able to pose it any way you want. And then getting to the legs, I like the muscular detail that we get. We get an ankle bracelet with that same gold green paint as we saw on the armbands and the wrist bracelets, and then we get these very beast-like jackal feet that have a nice gradient transition from flesh tone to this dark black color. And that pretty much does it for Anubis, so why don't we go ahead and take a look at his accessories. Starting with his alternate head. This head is inspired by the statues of Anubis. We get all these cracks from the paint and the wood chipping over time. Gold trim around the eye, as well as on the inside of the ear. And then when we get to the top of the head, we get gold, blue, and turquoise. And because of this ball joint, it'll fit right up the head. So if you want a more ancient appearance for Anubis, now you've got one with this head sculpt. Oh, and while I'm thinking about it, let me show you this alternate neck piece. We also get these crack details as if it's going from flesh to stone. I really could care less about this accessory. The only reason why we have it is to pair up with this statuesque head. And you see what I mean? We have it on, but you can barely tell that it's any different from that original neck. It's cool that Four Horsemen does their best to give us a lot of accessories, but some just aren't needed. And I think that's kind of a problem, especially considering when you have these back pieces that are left completely hollow. I would have rather had some plugs than another neck. This is my favorite head of the set by far. I like the details that we get inside the mouth. All of these ridges, the muscly nature of his tongue, the black dry brushing that we get on the inside, with the slight glossiness to make it look wet. This is a pretty awesome look for Anubis, but if we want him to start using his other accessories, we're gonna have to swap out these hands. And real quick, I just want to nitpick the hands that he comes with. We don't have any fists for Anubis.
What?
But depending on the hand you pop on, some will have vertical or horizontal joints. I went ahead and gave Anubis his beast gripping hand so we could give him this was staff. This staff represented protection over the dead as Anubis led souls to the afterlife. We get this turquoise green paint and then a subtle black dry brushing just to give it a little bit of age and wear. And here Anubis is posed up with the was staff. He looks pretty decent, and truth be told, when you buy a Four Horseman action figure, you're not doing so for the articulation.
Other breaking news. Water. Wet.
Pretty much every other major collector-oriented action figure line has better articulation than a typical Four Horsemen figure. They do have elbows and knees that give you about 90 degrees, and I'm not saying that they have to be double jointed, but I think Cat Williams said it best when he said,
"You would have to have range."
It might not be a big deal depending on the kind of collector you are, but this figure's so good, why let articulation hold it back? Next up, we have this Ankh artifact. I really like the gold paint that we have here, and there's some subtle black dry brushing to really bring out the details of the hieroglyphs. Now this is an Egyptian symbol of life, which is perfect that it's included with Anubis, being that he guides souls to the afterlife. If you want to get him in cool poses like this, you have that option. Speaking of guiding souls to the afterlife, you really can't do so without packing the essentials, and that's where this canopic jar comes in. Now Anubis here only includes one, and it's the one featuring the head of a jackal. I like this blue and red paint that we get for the top of the head, and then it's accented by this gold trim here on the bottom. And then we also get some really cool hieroglyphics sculpted in on the front. I also like the added touch of being able to remove the head so you could actually store things in this jar. The main purpose was to store what was thought of back then as the main organs of those who were being mummified, because it was thought that you would need those when you were going to the afterlife. You can't really get Anubis here to hold this canopic jar very well. You can kind of place it in his hands if you have his relaxed hands popped on, but this is an accessory really just for the historical value. Next up, we have this Wadjet Eye pectoral. Now this is based on an actual artifact that was pulled from King Tut's tomb. It's also attached to this display base which it can be removed from, so you can have it on display in your own action figure collection. Finally, we get his largest accessory by far, which is this Anubis shrine. It really looks like the real artifact if you look it up online. I like how the Four Horsemen team replicated the wooden statue of Anubis up top. I also really like this base. It's really large and it's all painted in this fantastic shiny gold paint. And it comes apart in two pieces. It's really hollow on the inside, but if you wanted to, you could probably store some accessories in here for safekeeping. And then finally, if you want to bring Anubis to the mortal realm, you do have these alternate feet that he comes with.
Egyptian gods walk among us.
And then if you bring in his earthly hands, you can give him a much more human appearance. I'm sure you customizers out there are really going to like the inclusion of these pieces. Honestly, I'm probably never going to have them posed with these hands or feet. The beast ones he comes with are so cool. But that'll do it for Anubis, so off you go. It's time to look at Bastet. And Bastet has a lot of the same details that were packed into Anubis. Our goddess has one of the more statuesque heads popped on. You can tell by the weathered texture near the snout of her feline face. We don't really get black skin, it's more like a really dark navy color. And it does a really great job of making those sky blue eyes pop. The gold trim around them also plays a part in that. And then we also get similar gold patterns within the ears. These ears also have earrings, and they're pretty nice. They're actually made out of a real metal. Other than the size, the Nemes is the exact same. All the detail that we saw in Anubis is packed in right here, right down to the gold trims on the top and the bottom. I also like the scarab that we get in the middle of her forehead, flanked by these two golden markings raised above her brow. Just like with Anubis, the Nemes ends with this gold paint here on the bottom, with some intricate sculpting right there. If we pop this Nemes off, we can get a better look at the broad collar. We get that same color pattern of turquoise and red that we saw in Anubis, but we also get this extra dark blue. It all comes to a point featuring this golden falcon emblem, likely representing the sun god Ra. Just below that, we get these mummy-like wrappings covering the top portion of Bastet's body. Just like Anubis, we get these golden green armbands, as well as these golden green bracelets. Bastet's arms look pretty fit as well. When we go to the back of the figure, we have these peg holes.
I don't like it.
Just below that, we get more of that strap detail that we saw in her upper body. And then I like how we have this basket-like woven pattern for her waistband. It has a nice rich blue color with some dry brushing on top. And just like Anubis, we have some gradient going on with the tail, going from a flesh tone into a deeper blue color. That soft goods linen material also has a bendy wire. When we get to the middle of the waistband, we get a golden leopard head, and then a sash that goes down below that. And then when we move it out of the way, we can also see a very nice female sculpt for the legs, appropriately curvy and smooth.
Ain't like it.
When we get to the bottom of the legs, another golden green bracelet, and then Bastet's beast-like feet. Now when it comes to Bastet's alternate head, things get a bit more interesting. Take for example this head sculpt. It's the exact same design as the one on her body right now. The only difference is that when we flip to the back of the head, this one obviously has a peg so that the Neme can attach, and this one doesn't. Meaning when you pop Bastet's head off, you get a completely smooth look for the back of her head without that unsightly peg there.
It's beautiful. So smooth.
As for Bastet's more organic head sculpt, the skin tone is a little bit lighter, and then it has a lighter blue dry brushing just to help bring out the sculpt. The golden arches above the brow also have much more of an organic shape to them. I like these subtle sculpting details as we get to the ear canal, and just like that wooden head sculpt, we get these metal earrings. It's definitely more organic, but I would have appreciated if the skin tone was just a bit darker. And then obviously, if you want to attach the names, you're going to have to put this head sculpt on. Again, it has the same detail as the one we see right here. The only difference is we get some additional sculpted details so that when we do attach the names, it has much more of a finished look. Overall, not bad. My thoughts still stand as far as the skin tone is concerned. I do wish it was a bit darker, so I think I'm leaning more towards the statuesque head sculpt that she came packaged with. Moving on to Bastet's other accessories, we get this basket and we get this sistrum. Now this basket has a really cool woven pattern to it, and the reason why she's included with it is because many of the statues or figurines of Bastet featured her holding a similar basket. Now as for the sistrum, it's essentially a clanging instrument. These circular pieces in the middle were like mini cymbals, and they would slide across these metal bars. So when you shook it, it would make a clanging sound. I like this subtle dry brushing of gold, lending to the aged look of this instrument. Like that basket, Bastet was oftentimes shown with its hands in different artwork or sculptures. These are honestly not the most exciting accessories in the world, but from an ancient Egyptian cultural standpoint, it's cool that they're included.
This is educational fun, the best kind.
As for the last of the accessories that Bastet can hold, we get this Aegis of Sekhmet. It has this oxidized copper look, with this turquoise color followed by dry brushing of black and gold. Now an Aegis is essentially a shield, this one apparently depicting Sekhmet, Bastet's twin sister, and again, just like some of the other accessories, this is based on a real-life artifact. These might not be the most exciting accessories from a historical standpoint. I think there's a lot to appreciate. We also get this falcon pectoral and this wooden leopard head. Again, these were actually based on artifacts that were found inside King Tut's tomb. And just like that Wajidai pectoral, they come with their own display base so that you can actually have them propped up on your shelves. We also get these 3 extra canopic jars, featuring the head of a falcon, a baboon, and a man. Just like the jackal-headed one, the tops of all 3 of them can be removed, so if you do have some accessories you want to store inside here, it is possible. And then finally, just like Anubis, we get this Bastet statue. This is based on an actual wooden sculpture of Bastet, and it looks like Four Horsemen captured all of the right details. They did a great job on the green dry brushing, and then I like the touches of gold that we get for the nose ring and the earrings. There are also some more subtle details, like the scarab sculpted into the forehead of the cat, as well as this Wajidai necklace. And then just below that, we also get a sculpted detail of a scarab with its wings spread. And then if you want to give Bastet more of a human touch, she does come with some spare human feet and a variety of human gripping hands. So if you want Bastet to walk like an Egyptian, now you can. And here we have Anubis and Bastet with most of their accessories. Not the most action-packed set in the world, but if you want to beef it up, there is a way to make it a bit more exciting with this. You're looking at some of the accessories that come with NECA's Ultimate Universal Monster Mummy figure and the Mummy accessory set. And I think when paired up with these Four Horsemen figures, they're a match made in heaven. And as for size comparisons, both of these figures stand around the 6.5 inch mark, so that means they're going to scale well with other 6 to 7 inch action figure lines. Here they are next to some Egyptian themed figures from the Power Rangers Lightning collection. We have the complete Zeo Ranger team in addition to King Sphinx. Here they are next to some various Cobra figures from the G.I. Joe Classified line. They're a bit taller than standard size Marvel Legends like Spider-Man or Black Cat, but a bit shorter than some of the godlike characters like Thor, Apocalypse, and Thanos. Here they are next to various size figures from the Spawn action figure line by McFarlane Toys. Moving on to NECA, they're going to look great compared to the likes of the Creepshow action figures, the Scarab Predator from the Kenner line, the Mummy from the Universal Monsters line, and a Treasure Hunter like Nathan Drake. They'll also look great next to some Universal Monster TMNT mashups. And they're going to be dwarfed next to the 3 Pyramid Dwelling Brothers and Hunters from NECA's AVP line. And then finally, here's how they look under black light. For figures depicting the gods, I was expecting a bit more of a pop, but oh well. So as for my final thoughts, if I was going to answer the question of whether these are god tier figures, I'd have to say no. Now don't get me wrong, they're pretty good, but
Anything good could be better.
the detail is pretty amazing. It's practically the one thing you can guarantee with every Four Horsemen action figure. But the articulation left a lot to be desired. What's here is functional, but the range of movement is limited, and I also think it affects the balance of the figure as well. The accessories are also nice, and I can certainly see people who aren't traditionally into action figures picking these figures up just for the historical value. But I left myself wanting a little bit more in terms of the imagination these figures could have brought. I would have loved to see some Egyptian weapons thrown into the mix, or smooth heads for Anubis so that you didn't have to pose them with the Neems all the time. I also think the lack of fists is a bit of an odd choice, considering all the other extras that you get. These figures are sold out now, but fortunately the aftermarket prices haven't skyrocketed, so if you missed out on that initial launch, you shouldn't have a hard time getting these figures at retail value on the aftermarket. But that'll do it for this review. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share my video if you like what I'm doing here. That really helps out more than you know. Be sure to stick around for a gallery at the end, and as always, collect responsibly.